They defy description and definition. Some call them anomalies, myths, legend, or lies. Others call them spirits, demonic forces, or claim they are real, living, breathing, flesh and blood creatures. They are the unexplained, and these are the investigations.
Pull back the curtain on everyday life, and you'll find a world that's still mysterious. In an age of space travel and supercomputers, it may seem weird to hear stories of werewolves and demons, Bigfoot and ghosts. But deep down, maybe we're still afraid of the things that might hide in our closets. And before you scoff at these bedtime stories, remember, science also started as an investigation into the unexplained.
Our first unexplained encounter brings us face to face with a legend shared by numerous cultures around the world. Stories of a half-man, half-monster that manifests itself in the glow of the full moon. Werewolves have long been the fodder of scary movies, books, and more than a few nightmares. But no one really believes they exist, right? Well, maybe not. Parts of rural southeastern Wisconsin believe that the legend of the werewolf is anything but. They claim it's a living, breathing beast. Rumors swirl around these parts. Stories told in hushed tones, passed down from generation to generation, dating back as far as 1936.
My involvement in this mystery, if you call it that, is that I'm the son of a man who had a dual encounter. His name was Marky Shackelman. The two encounters he had was when he was working as a night watchman at the St. Coletta's School for Exceptional Children. And he came upon an animal or something digging in what was then considered to be an old Indian burial mound. He approached it thinking it was a large dog. It was down on all fours at the time. My dad came up closer to it. He told me approximately 6-7 feet away. He was fearful of no man, but he was scared of this beast.
The very next night, Joe Shackelman's father had almost the exact same encounter. This time, he got a better view of the beast, and with Joe's artistic help, he was able to make this drawing.
My thoughts during the extended interview with my dad was, if this were anyone else, I don't know if I would believe him. I mean, but my dad was a low-keyed, non-hysterical type of individual. And in fact, I was the only one he ever told.
As the decades passed, stories persisted about a canine creature stalking the area. But not much was documented until late 1991, when Linda Godfrey, author and a local reporter for the Week newspaper, was assigned to look into the stories.
Well, when I first heard about this, I was very skeptical because a freelance reporter that sometimes did work for the newspaper I worked at called in and said, "Linda, there are rumors that there's a werewolf around Elkhorn." I laughed out loud. The first story that came to my attention actually happened in 1989. And it was a woman driving home alone at night who saw this thing kneeling by the side of the road, holding roadkill as if it had been eating it. And it had a dog-like head, but a very human-like body and long, furry, dark hair. But as I started investigating, I found out that there were other communities that had long had legends of this sort of creature.
The territory the beast is believed to stalk is Wisconsin's Kettle Moraine State Park region, which was formed by glaciers thousands of years ago. The pockets of remote lakes and streams surrounded by hilly, dense forests is thought to be, perhaps, an ideal breeding ground for an unknown species.
Right now, we're standing about 8 miles north of Elkhorn, Wisconsin, in the heart of the Kettle Moraine State Forest, which is prime werewolf or dogman territory. A lot of people call this creature a werewolf, which would be traditionally defined as a person or human that changes form and becomes a werewolf. I think maybe something like dogman or large hairy creature is a more accurate way to say it. But the most compelling thing that almost everyone says is that this creature looks them in the eye and has this very fierce and aggressive stare that seems to frighten people deeply.
Stories like these may frighten many, but they leave people like Richard Hendricks skeptical. Richard is a paranormal investigator who has spent a great deal of time studying the area and the man-dog phenomena.
I got involved because it's a long-term personal interest of mine. I also know several people that have had weird experiences, and people are reliable, people I trust. And so I started asking, questioning, well, why are they having this experience? Does that mean something's out there, or is there some other source that could be causing it? Over the years, there's been a number of sightings. Of course, we also have to look at when they've seen the creature as well. A lot of people have seen it at night. They're driving down the road. They catch a glimpse of something in the headlight of the car, and they just have a few moments impression of it, and they kind of fill in the blanks.
While there have been many eyewitnesses, Richard has yet to find any hard evidence.
Well, there's a lot of theories about what it could be, but that doesn't prove anything. I don't know what the sightings are. I try to keep an open mind about it, unless I really see it myself. We have some good photographic evidence or a body or something like that. I believe that people had experiences, but what those experiences are, I don't know.
A lot of people have asked me about the credibility of the witnesses, and as far as I can tell, none of them have had anything to gain. Most of them have really had something to lose.
I don't believe it's a werewolf. I believe there is something out there, though.
But what that is remains a mystery. Hidden in the dark shadows and basking in the eerie moonlight of southeastern Wisconsin. From beast men to demon boys, up next we'll explore exorcism.
If someone says that they're possessed, it means that they're taken over by an entity of some kind.
And later, we'll travel to a tourist destination with a haunting history.
I would say it's definitely the most haunted plantation in the country, without a doubt.
Venture into the unknown.
Our investigations of the unexplained continue with one of the darkest, most chilling, and inexplicable of phenomena: possession.
If someone says that they're possessed, it means that they're taken over by an entity of some kind.
Before wretched man, not in the condition of human frailty.
You'll have individuals feeling that they're taken over by spirits.
Then to God.
Some claim that those possessed are actually crazed or merely con artists. But one famous case that occurred in Maryland cannot be so simply categorized: the real story behind The Exorcist. Few stories of possession have captured the imagination of moviegoers like the 1973 horror classic, The Exorcist. Based on William Blatty's best-selling novel of the same title, the story of one little girl's spine-chilling case of possession by the devil still haunts people to this day. story was set in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., and one of its most famous scenes occurred here. On the campus of Georgetown University is where you'll find the 75 steps down which Father Karras takes a fatal tumble in the movie's final scene. It's a location that you can still visit to this day. But what is most terrifying about The Exorcist is that it is based on a true story.
It all starts in January of '49 when a boy, Robbie, and his grandmother are alone in a house in Mount Rainier, Maryland. And they start to hear scratchings in the walls. Finally, there are scratches that seem to be coming from the middle of the mattress of the boy's bed. Objects start to fly around the rooms, according to witnesses. And all this while, they're trying to figure out, what is this?
Terrified by what they'd witnessed, the Lutheran family takes Robbie to their minister, who decides to spend the night observing the boy.
The Reverend Schultz wakes up and he starts to feel there's something going on in the room. Puts Robbie and a blanket on the floor, and Robbie and the blanket start to move across the floor under the bed. And Schultz has seen enough. The next day he takes Robbie back to the parents and he talks to the parents and he says, "This is beyond me. The Catholics understand this kind of thing."
The family takes his advice, moving to St. Louis and calling on the help of 3 men: Father Bodern, Father Bishop, and the yet-to-be-ordained Walter Halloran.
Well, Father Bodern got me on the way into supper, and he told me that he had to go out and see some people that evening and asked me if I'd drive him. So I said, sure. So he visited with the family for a while, and the little boy was there. And he said, well, he says, we better get down to business. Well, now we'll start with some prayers.
The Lord be with you.
So he starts with the prayers of exorcism.
I adjure
And
thee, thou ancient serpent.
I was kneeling at the foot of the bed.
It is he who silenced the groans of hell, for he has stripped thee of thy might and laid
And pretty soon the bed started going up and down like this. And
intersection of all holy men.
he just said, well, he says, don't be afraid.
The power of the mysteries of Christian faith commands thee. Go out then, thou transgressor.
And that was my first clue, that it was an exorcism.
In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, make way the way.
This is just the beginning of a very long routine of vigils, prayers, and blessings by the holy men, night after night, week after week, and month after month. But rather than improving Robbie's condition, eyewitnesses claim that he became increasingly violent and is moved to the Alexian Brothers Hospital for his own protection, where the exorcism continues.
And then it's Easter Monday. Sometime on the morning of Easter Monday,
Which assist thy church to save thee in all security, deliver.
Robbie suddenly says the word Dominus. And Dominus is the word, Dominus the Lord. And that's the moment when the exorcism ends. When Robbie explains about this later, he said he had a vision of an angel in armor with a flaming sword fighting off demons. He's absolutely a little boy again without being possessed, and he has no memory of what happened.
While the existence of possession is still a hot-button topic, so are the dark events surrounding the filming of the Exorcist movie. It was here, at the base of the soon-to-be famous steps, that the film crew arrived, already spooked by a fire on the studio set and injuries to a number of the actors. So when it came time to film the dangerous stunt scene of Father Karras' stairwell fall, the crew took no chances.
Yes, clearly the people were concerned about some of the irregularities that happened, and I remember they asked me if I would give the actors and actresses and the set, etc., a blessing. So I said, all right. So I went out there and sprinkled everybody with holy waters. So I don't know if that helped.
It may have. The final stunt went off without a hitch.
It really was quite a tumble that the man took. I think they showed it in the movie for about 3 or 4 seconds.
Is possession real? No one can be sure. But the story of a boy, the strange occurrences that surrounded him, and one famous set of steps will be sure to keep the questions coming and an investigation ongoing. Think you're ready for another paranormal pursuit? Next, we'll visit a warship that won't give up the ghosts of its past.
So in essence, we've got a small town in one location with dozens of people seeing dozens of ghosts, and that in itself is a totally unique experience.
Don't wander off. From things that howl at the moon to a boy possessed by demons, when it comes to investigating the unexplained, there are some mysteries that go way back. But if I had to make a bet, I'd wager that the oldest of them all are the stories and visions of the Walking Dead.
It is a monument to the Navy's might. 27,000 tons of fearsome floating steel. Moored in Alameda, California, the USS Hornet is an aircraft carrier with a storied and heroic past. Decommissioned in 1970, today it's a national landmark, museum, and a tourist destination seen by 100,000 visitors a year. But those in the field of paranormal investigation claim the USS Hornet hosts more than tourists. They believe it's the home of ghosts. The first ship, named Hornet, was launched in 1775. By 1942, the seventh ship to bear the name went by the code name Shangri-La and was in the thick of the action in the famous Doolittle raids over Tokyo. After fighting valiantly in the Battle of Midway, this Hornet was overwhelmed in the Battle of Santa Cruz and had to be sunk. Then, on August 30th, 1943, the Navy launched the 8th and final USS Hornet. This aircraft carrier destroyed more than 1,400 Japanese aircraft, sank 1.2 million tons of enemy shipping, and supported virtually every Pacific amphibious landing for the next quarter of a century. But with the heroism of war also comes the horrors of war. Horrors that haunt the Hornet to this day.
From my understanding of the USS Hornet, there have been people who have felt they've seen ghostly entities, and there's another group of individuals who experience poltergeist activity. That can happen. You can have a variety of phenomena in one location.
Josh Reeves is the museum director of the USS Hornet and is well aware of the ship's supposed phenomena.
The ghostly sightings appeared first when the ship came to Alameda in 1995 at the closing of this Navy base. The ship was not open to the public as a museum ship yet. We had small restoration crews on board working at that time, and that's when the ghostly sightings first appeared. Actually, one of the encounters happened right where we're at here in the forecastle. I know that While these workers were originally painting this compartment, some happened to glance up at one of the catwalks overhead and saw that looked to be a chief in his Navy khakis and one of the crewmen in his dungaree blues. The chief giving an order to the crewman, and then he walked off through one of the doorways.
When the workers went looking for the two men, they'd vanished. More than 300 similar claims of ghost sightings have been reported since the Hornet came to rest in Alameda. Men in uniform walking the decks and corridors, objects moving, face-to-face encounters. But why the proud ship can't rest in peace is a question that deserves an answer. Anne Golomak claims to be a clairvoyant medium who has done many investigations into the unexplained phenomena aboard the Hornet. And just what does a clairvoyant medium do? To put it frankly, Anne claims she sees dead people.
I may see them very clearly, and I will then ask them what they need, or if they have a story to tell, or if they need help, because sometimes they need help. But often they're here to help us, as they are in the USS Hornet. When I board the ship, there is a strong sense of activity. There are men moving around the ship, acting in the way they would when they were here. I've seen men working on the ship. I've heard machinery running. I've heard the men running during an attack. The shouting, the noise, the panic sometimes, I think, that the fear that comes through, although it seems very controlled because they're following orders. They're so well trained. But the energy of it is very powerful.
Joining Anne today is Lloyd Auerbach, a well-known paranormal investigator. Lloyd focuses his research by attempting to apply a degree of science to the world of spirits.
There is nothing designed today to detect ghosts or poltergeist phenomena or anything else, because we don't have anything in our science that allows us to do that for sure. But what we have found is that technology often detects anomalies or unusual events in the environment that correlate to the witness testimony. Yeah, nothing. Oh.
Lloyd uses a magnetometer to measure fluctuations in magnetic fields. While there is no scientific corroboration to support Lloyd's use of this technology, these changes in energy frequently correspond to Anne's sightings. Both Anne and Lloyd have visited the Hornet several times because it's a rarity, even in the world of unexplained phenomena.
A lot of times we talk about hotspots in locations, and to us a hotspot is any location or any spot where there have been more than one sighting of the same or similar apparitions. In the case of the Hornet, we have at least 25 sites.
I don't think I can even count how many spirits that I have encountered on the ship. As I walked through today, even in this forecastle area, there are several watching what we're doing here, giving me little hints of their presence. There's been at least 300 or 400 encounters that have been reported.
As Anne and Lloyd scour the ship in search of spirits, they are increasingly drawn to an area that, to them, appears rife with paranormal activity, the infirmary.
You get two people. Same Dr. Mason or Captain Mason, maybe over here.
Yeah, I mean it's been fluctuating, so yeah. quite a bit. Excuse me. Whoa! Excuse me.
Lloyd's instruments flick to life as Anne describes a doctor frustrated by the lack of medical equipment.
I've had contact with him before.
I should get out the other meter and see if we're getting anything on the other one too. What we're getting is very randomly fluctuating magnetic fields. These devices measure two different frequency weights. This is measured for 60 hertz, which basically means it'll pick up technology. But the ship is shut down today, so most of the technology is off, most of the electrics are off. This device measures natural fields, meaning that a person can set it off from time to time as well, because we all give off electromagnetic fields. So we're dealing with two different frequencies, and they're both, this one's going crazy too. And that's what we look for, is multiple correlations A single device by itself doesn't help, but especially when Anne is picking something up and we're getting the devices going off, there is something here that she is picking up.
But there's still the question of why. Why would this valiant ship still harbor so many ghosts? Many believe the hauntings are a result of its many fierce and bloody battles. But others believe the purpose is more, shall we say, spiritual.
It would seem that the motivations of the ghosts here on the Hornet have been to keep the ship going, to keep the ship in people's awareness.
My general impression of the spirit activity on the USS Hornet is very powerful, and I was told that the spirits want the ship to be a monument to peace and a learning place.
I don't know if the USS Hornet is haunted, but if it is, I do think that the ghosts are not of a malevolent type. I think that they're proud of what we're doing here, and all the evidence seems to believe that they're here to kind of assist us in our mission, not to hinder us.
But not every ghost is so civic-minded. We travel next to Louisiana for a chilling look at an old plantation.
I feel like somebody's watching us from in there.
Don't go away.
We're heading to the Old South, to a Louisiana location with a past it would like to forget. There may be something at the Myrtles plantation that doesn't want history to die, and has turned this building into perhaps the most haunted house in America. The Myrtles plantation has a rich history dating back to 1796, when General David Bradford, better known as Whiskey Dave, bought 650 acres and built the original house, ignoring the fact that his residence would sit squarely on the sacred burial ground of the Tunica Indians. The house survived the Civil War and 2 centuries of calamities, and today it is a beautiful bed and breakfast.
The Myrtles plantation is nestled in over 200 oak trees that are 200 years old. They're dispersed all over the 13 acres that we have today. It's like great big arms that just wrap around the property. Architecturally, we have people who come because of the significance of the Wedgwood wrought iron that just encloses the whole house.
But look beyond the Myrtles' majestic facade and finery, and you'll discover what some believe to be a terrifying secret.
We probably have an equal number of people who come just for the ghost.
The Myrtles plantation has been documented as being the most haunted place in the United States.
And looking at a lot of the haunted stories that are around the country, like in Louisiana. And I found this over and over again in scientifically and academically looking at some of these hauntings. You have a phenomena, it may be poltergeist, it may be a sighting.
Some say they see the judge's children.
It may be a cold shaft.
It's very, very cold.
And people have these very real experiences.
I feel like somebody's watching us from in there.
Tita LeBlue Moss, the current owner, recalls strange events happening as soon as she moved into the Myrtles in 1992.
The first thing I can remember happening was that you'd get your name called. Tita. Tita is not exactly an everyday name. It's not Mary or Ann. But I would hear my name called. Tita. Tita. Tita.
Hester Eby has been the tour manager at the plantation for 14 years.
I do believe in ghosts and did not believe in ghosts before I started working here. They've been known to brush our guest hair, you know, just a little stroke. And I myself have had the tugging. kind of the feel as if just a child's tug, the way they want to tell you something and you're talking to someone else and they're trying to get your attention. These two parlors are a mirror image.
But just how did this plantation house acquire its supposed ghostly manner? The answer may lie shrouded in the Myrtles' turbulent past. The year is 1834. As the story goes, a slave named Chloe served the family of the plantation's owner, Judge Woodruff. She was also his mistress. Chloe's fate and the fate of the entire household was decided the day Chloe was caught eavesdropping on one of the judge's conversations.
And as punishment, he cut off her left ear. A few days later, she baked a birthday cake for his oldest daughter and used the juices from the oleander leaf in that cake. It let off a liquid similar to arsenic. Being baked in the family's cake, it killed the judge's wife, Sarah, and 2 of her children.
Could it be that they still haunt the hallways and roam the rooms of the Myrtles?
Some say they see the judge's children, always wearing long white dresses, and guests say they're looking down from the upstairs window. At a glance, they see the children. They blink an eye or turn to tell someone else, and they're gone.
The belief that the Myrtles is haunted is what attracts people like Kalila Smith, an avid paranormal investigator.
I would say it's definitely the most haunted plantation in the country, without a doubt.
Kalila brought 5 friends to the Myrtles to spend the night.
It's gone now. It sounded like it was coming from upstairs.
Using night vision video, the group hoped to document paranormal activity.
When we were investigating the property, one of the first things we noticed was that the rooms, this parlor here and the adjacent one, were significantly colder than the rest of the house.
All right, guys, this room's definitely colder than the other one.
We used non-contact thermometers to measure the temperature in here.
It's cold.
And the temperature dropped to about 60 degrees just in these 2 rooms. We noticed that there was at least a 20-degree difference in temperature in this area of the house as opposed to the rest of the house.
It gives me the creeps down here, it really does.
While Kalila and her crew experienced rapid temperature changes that night, they did not definitively see any ghosts. It is glimpses, double takes, and peeks into the paranormal world that keep the curious coming.
We have guests who've been 16, 18 times in the 11 years that we've owned it. We have people who come almost every weekend just to visit. They feel a great connection to it. They feel very nurtured here.
I think the spirits are here because this is their home. You know, we're the ones that's intruding a bit.
The Myrtles is very important because the activity is so prevalent here. People who are into ghost hunting, whether it be for a hobby or professionally, will find what they're looking for here.
Coming up, we go in search of the Sasquatch.
Typical characteristics are they're massive, slim-waisted, big chest, hairy all over, very heavy brow ridge.
Next up, the unexplained.
Our last investigation of the unexplained has us trekking to the Pacific Northwest to explore a legend that has fueled the imaginations of people around campfires for centuries and left a giant footprint on our collective psyche. It's the legend of Bigfoot. From Native American warriors to modern-day farmers, stories persist of a giant ape-like creature stalking the Pacific Northwest. Today, the search for Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, lives on in the prime Bigfoot country of America's Northwest. Areas like Oregon's densely forested mountain region, the Molalla River Recreation Corridor, are a favorite of hikers, mountain bikers, and tourists out for a scenic drive. And also, some believe, the home of Bigfoot.
Most people talk about Bigfoot country as Northern California, up through Oregon, Washington State, into lower British Columbia. This is a creature between 6 and 8.5 feet tall. It's bipedal. In other words, it's upright, hairy, human-like.
What most people don't realize is that descriptions like these are based on a surprising amount of alleged physical evidence.
Bigfoot is an interesting creature that many of us, like myself, believe is an early man type. Typical characteristics are they're massive, slim-waisted, big chest, hairy all over, very heavy brow ridge.
Ray Crow is the head of the International Bigfoot Society and has collected what he claims to be numerous pieces of the Bigfoot puzzle.
We have several different artifacts and things that have a tendency to prove the existence of Bigfoot. One of them, for instance, is some of these tracks. This particular track here from Bend, Oregon is something like 16 inches long by 7 inches wide, much bigger than what a human foot would be. From Walla Walla, Washington, Bigfoot was going up a muddy area near a spring, and he left his handprints in the actual mud, and they were able to cast them.
Ray has even collected hair samples.
This particular hair here has been tested and found to not really compare with anything.
But one of the most chilling pieces of alleged evidence comes in the form of an audio recording made in 1995. It was taped by 3 men searching northern Oregon's mountains for signs of Bigfoot. They try hitting sticks against trees, believed to be a Bigfoot method of communication, and attempt a calling technique. What they hear next freezes the blood in their veins.
Oh, it's no coyote, is it? No.
The screams get closer and closer until the terrified trio has had enough. They sprint for the car and flee the scene. To this day, no one has been able to identify the animal species captured on the recording. However, believers in Bigfoot like Ray Crow and independent Bigfoot researcher Todd Neese are not afraid. In fact, they still organize expeditions deep into Bigfoot country, looking for that one picture or piece of evidence to finally prove Bigfoot is not fiction.
Essentially, a Bigfoot expedition is setting out and doing several different experiments, trying to attract the creature in.
What we're looking for is a very large bipedal hominid creature. We believe it weighs somewhere between 500 and 800 pounds. It's a remnant of, most likely, Gigantopithecus that we know to have existed in Eastern Asia. We're about ready to head out and set up the equipment. Robert, this is Todd. Do you copy?
This is Robert, I copy.
Have you identified a good location for the sensors?
Copy, we're ready to go over here.
All right, we'll come to your location then. There's a number of techniques used. I mean, we basically put out sensors, such as seismic ground sensors we have, that pick up footfalls. Also, we have tripwire flare devices that will trigger a glow stick to come on. This camera system here, essentially, if anything should come down this trail within a 60-foot area. It will trigger this camera to take a shot day or night. One of the last pieces of equipment in our arsenal is this. It's a parabolic microphone designed to pick up sounds from quite a distance off. If tonight we hear any sort of vocalizations that we suspect might be Bigfoot, we'll train it in that direction. All right, we're going to run this tripwire across this trail, and we better get going pretty quick because we're losing daylight.
Hopes are high as night falls in the forest, and the team hunkers down and waits. Everyone in the expedition not only shares an obsession with Bigfoot, they almost all have had an encounter. As the fireside stories unfold, the night wanes and ends uneventfully. The next morning, Todd heads out to collect the traps and finds something unexpected. During the night, something may have been here, stalking the campsite, silently watching.
What tracks might have been down here have been washed out by the rain we had last night. Looks like there may have been something around here, but nothing definitive. Well, we got something on film. Camera's apparently been tripped. Whether it's a deer, bear, elk, cougar, or Bigfoot, we won't know until we have time to develop the film.
The pictures capture nothing more than a mouse, and despite centuries of sightings, countless attempts to track and trap these creatures, and the use of every type of modern technology, no one to this day has a single piece of definitive proof that Bigfoot exists. But Ray and Todd remain undeterred.
The only way you can prove to people that there is such a thing is by showing them something concrete. A set of footprints in the mud along the lake, or an actual sighting of the thing, usually convinces people, hey, there is such a thing as this Bigfoot.
What do I say to a skeptic? Being formerly one myself, I don't have a problem with it. They need to open their minds and realize that new creatures are being discovered all the time.
But Bigfoot, if it does exist, remains elusive, stepping lightly through the misty mountains of America's Northwest.
If an 800-pound ape can remain hidden in the Pacific Northwest, then why not werewolves, or demons, or even ghosts? Stranger things have turned out to be true. And believers know the proof is out there, waiting to be found. Until then, the investigation continues.